Well, hello there. This is Seriously Speaking, and my name remains Adesuwa Onyenokwe. Why am I doing this? Because today I have a fellow woman in the house. Sometimes when you see me with a woman, you can't thinking about today's woman. But the truth is, on this show, we talk about things, fun, politics, whatever it is, but from a serious angle. And today, I have an activist and a politician in the house. Before we recorded this show, we had told you on Twitter that she was going to be here. So you had some questions for her. But she's one of those who, she doesn't know this, I'm surprising her with this. She made me vote the way I voted in 2015. And I'll tell you why. Now you know what I voted and where I voted. I'll be back on Seriously Speaking if you don't go away.
It's like, careful not to have this crazy expression.
Okay, you can see we're already chatting. I come back and my guest is Hadiza Bala Usman. It's nice to have you on Seriously Speaking.
Thank you for having me, Adesuwa.
You couldn't stop but saying, but I do this all the time because that way you know that this is spontaneous reaction. We are not planning this interview. I've always wanted to have you sit here. I always wanted you to talk about what it is like to be in politics now after being an activist. But you forget a conversation I had with you one morning in Port Harcourt. We're having breakfast, and I'm like, oh my goodness. The person who's running for presidency under the APC, our president currently, Muhammadu Buhari, he's a bigot, he's this, he's that. I told you all of those things. By the time we finished our conversation, I walked away completely different because you managed to convince me for different reasons that I will share in my book. For different reasons, but you managed to convince me to go that way. So you are responsible. If I'm unhappy today, it's because of you.
Well, I'm glad my conversation was able to communicate the fact that, you know, the right thing to do was to vote for change.
You did say so. But before I go there, you know, people refer to you, first of all, as the daughter of a great activist. You are an activist. Yeah. You have your badge there, Bring Back Our Girls Now. Yeah. I would like to begin by what was it about your upbringing that made you as vocal as you have become or as you became over time?
Well, I think I was brought up in a university environment that...
University of Zaria.
Yes, ABU Zaria. I was born and brought up in Zaria. I lived all my life from 0 to 24 in Zaria in the university community. So in so doing, we tend to challenge status quo. My father encouraged dialogue with himself.
Even though you're a girl?
Yes, even though completely, our gender in my family was immaterial because my father considered all of us the same. I have 3 sisters and 3 brothers. We're 7 of us, and you know, all of us were treated equally. My dad taught us, the girls, how to change the tires of a car. When you have a puncture, he taught my sisters and I what to do. Mm-hmm. So we're not brought up around gender lines. We're brought up to question positions. We're brought up to understand that you don't just follow things. You understand the ideology behind something. You understand it for yourself. You just don't go with the bandwagon. You have to understand issues and discuss issues, and you agree to disagree. Like with my father, we discuss things. We don't necessarily agree all the time.
Were you odd in the environment that you grew up in? Was that odd?
No, actually, it was not. We all literally behaved like that.
Or just generally? I'm talking generally about being in the North.
Okay. Well, in the North, females are not really expected to be seen, not heard. Being a woman, you're not expected to be right there in the mix, sort of challenging status quo or getting involved in actual politicking or actual dialogues or actual debates. You're expected to take the back seat. You're expected not to sort of sit with the boys, I will say, or sort of be there, being part of any dialogue, being part of any discussion. So indeed, in the North is much harder for a woman because you're not expected to in any way be part of that discussion.
Well, seeing you, obviously it can be done. Obviously it can be done. You know, whatever the North is, it can produce women like you.
Yeah.
It means that there's room there. But would you agree if they say that's probably one of the reasons why the North is still relatively one of the most backward compared to the South in terms of progress, education-wise?
Well, yeah, well, education is a challenge. But as I always say, there are thousands of women in the North like me. They just need to be given the opportunity. There are thousands of us that have been educated. There are thousands of us that have the ability, the courage to be able to speak up. It's just being given the right platform. So I always appreciate when I'm not any different from so many of us. I've just been opportuned to be given an opportunity. And this is why every time I speak for all of us and some of us that have not been able to have that voice.
Okay, one would say, would it be right to say your political godfather, is the governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai?
Well, I don't want to call it godfather. He was my boss. He remains someone that I hold very high.
Yeah.
While I'm in NPA now, I still discuss and dialogue and engage with him on Kaduna issues, on national issues. And indeed, he has been very supportive in building my confidence. He's one of those people that has the capacity to mentor the young. He believes that the sky is your limit. He doesn't look at gender lines. As
Obviously, because when you were made chief of staff, for example, the question was, she's too young, she's female, where did he bring them from? I mean, he's undergone a lot of criticism for some of the women he has appointed. How does he handle that? Yes,
with chief of staff, I was the first female chief of staff in the 19 northern states. So there's never been a chief of staff in all the... So it was something that's quite different. And if you're familiar with the job of a chief of staff, chief of staff interfaces on everything around the governor, literally the gateway into the government has access to the governor. So it was something the political elite, the political stakeholders...
Were you his girlfriend?
Absolutely
because
not.
Because you were his girlfriend.
Yes, they keep talking, it's so ridiculous. Yeah, because I worked at the BPE from 2000 to date. I'm not never ever his girlfriend. So,
but how does those things affect your work?
Well, I sort of just get on with doing what I have to do. Well, when people see women in career and you see your career progression is always tied to some man, always tied to the fact that, oh, this person's your boyfriend, without looking at the fact of your capacity, your ability, what are you able to deliver? Why are you being trusted to do this? So other people that interact with you would now realize that, oh, it's beyond her being a girl, beyond all of that. She's actually able to do the job. So when I started off as chief of staff, there's a lot of resistance. Like, this girl, she's young, she's a woman. How can she come into our
Obviously, you did that job well.
Well,
I mean, obviously you did, because you got hired, you know, in terms of, and from all indications, the past 1 year that you have headed NPA, there have been a lot of developments, even if I would say so, but there's also been a lot of controversy. I'll take a break now and I'll return to talk about that and your time in governance as the NPA boss.
Yes.
We'll be right back.
And the work is divided into 4 sections. This is section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. It comprises of cement, sand layer, 100 mm, stone-based layer, 200, 250, and asphalt. Then we have medium barrier, we have reinforcements there, and the drainage. So here the contractor encountered some challenges, and these are the solutions profiled.
Yes, welcome back. What we just saw were clips from some of the visits that my guest has made. And that particular one was a visit to the road that's been built that leads straight to the ports. And, you know, there you are giving them a hard one. One sprightly 41-year-old reading the riot act to all these bulky men. You know, it's one of the controversies about your position. First of all, your age, and then secondly, one recent one is the Intel activity. Do you want to comment on those ones?
Well, to talk about my age, I'm 41 this year. I was 40 when I was appointed. And I do not think 40 is young. I think wherever you are at 40, you reach the peak of maturity. You're able to take on any responsibility given to you. So Nigerians need to disabuse their minds from viewing a 40-year-old, a 41-year-old young. We're not young, really. We're at the point
of 2.
Yeah, we're not young. Anyone that is 40, 41, don't consider yourself young. You're not young. You're at a point where you can drive things. You have the energy, physically, mentally. You're able to focus and achieve as much as you can. So you're going to have maximum output from that age bracket, not in terms of being too young. As it relates to
the contract that,
Yeah, we recently terminated a contract with Intel's. They're providing us with a service. The fundamentals is that the company refuses to comply with TSA. TSA is paying all revenues of government into the Treasury single account. Yes, so that provision is clear.
That's bad enough?
Well, if you have a company that you spent 15 months trying to get them to comply, you've done supplemental agreements, you've done an SOP to say, this is how you should pay us all revenues into our accounts, invoice us with what is yours, we'll pay you. Give us a certificate of amortization and we'll pay you. I further discussed the need for us to even institute interest on delayed payment. We're going to pay you in 7 days. If we don't pay you, charge me an interest. So really, if you've been discussing this for 15
So
months, what is
the
left?
doubt is the function that TSA is slowing down progress in governance.
Well, there's a belief that TSA is slowing down, but when it relates to revenues of federal government, it's clearly stipulated in Constitution. All revenues of government needs to be consolidated within the consolidated revenue funds. That is clear. So no company should violate our Constitution and try to blackmail us into thinking it's political.
Did he try to blackmail?
Well, evidently, there's a lot of discussion around the media that, oh, it's about 2019. Comply to TSA, pay all revenues into the accounts of government, and that's all we're asking.
Then complain after.
And indeed, there are many, many such third-party agreements the NPA has, and those entities are paying the money into our coffers. You pay to us, you invoice us, and we pay you. You can't hold government money and say that, oh, you would deduct your payment, deduct what is due, and then pay us the balance. It doesn't work that way.